Hi, and welcome to Learning with Mrs. Lasley. Today I'll be talking about 5 steps to help a stressed or anxious child. So, stress and anxiety. It's what we don't want to talk about, but it's what everybody goes through. Us as adults know how common stress and anxiety can hit our own lives, and I think it's really important to remind ourselves that kids can have stress and anxiety just as often, if not even more, as some of us adults. So I've seen in my own past experience, as well as when I've worked with kids of all ages in all different kinds of platforms, that stress and anxiety can really hurt your success in learning. So I've seen multiple kids in multiple scenarios where they're trying to learn a new skill or they're trying to work on something academic, and all of a sudden you see that stress. There's a trigger that's been pulled or pressed. Something has gone wrong. They're not getting something right. Something's going awry, and now all of a sudden the focus is completely taken away from that academic activity or something that they were learning to, oh my gosh, I'm frustrated, I can't function. So one of my passions is to work with behaviors in kiddos. I think it's really important to hone in some of that behavioral component before you work on academics. And personally, I think that stress coping strategies and mechanisms are just not something that's really taught quite as often today. So it's really important to me to share this with you today because I know there are a lot of kids that can benefit from learning on how to cope. And I think as parents too, or as educators, it's helpful to be able to know what steps to take in really helping that child kind of get over that hurdle, because that's really what it is at that point. If there's a stressor that comes in, it's kind of like that black and white mode where all of a sudden nothing else matters and I'm stressed. Like, I need help. We need to find a solution. So I've kind of come up with, and I've found some information online too about 5 different steps to take to kind of help that kid get over that hump and maybe even help them in the future. So if there is a trigger or something that really hurts and causes them stress, maybe you can help, prevent that in the future. So steps to help a child that's stressed or anxious. Number 1 would be to get their attention and take a breath. I can't emphasize this anymore. Take a breath. Before you can even try to address the issue, the oxygen needs to be flowing all the way to the brain. And what happens when you get into that black and white mode is that the breathing starts getting rapid and you don't get that full breath of oxygen into your lungs. So it's really important to grab your child, get their attention, say, okay, let's take a breath. So breaths could be looking really different depending on the age group. So as an example, if I was talking to maybe a preschooler, so someone that's 3, 4, maybe even 5, I would do some kind of breathing technique like such. So one of my examples would be like a balloon breathing. So when I see that a child is having a really hard time, let's say they're working on a toy, maybe they're building with Legos, and the Legos just will not fit together and they are struggling. All of a sudden, what was a fun activity is now anger, and they're throwing the Lego pieces. So first I'm going to say, whoa, okay, I can see that you're upset. Let's take a breath real fast. So balloon breathing is like this. So you put your hands on top of your head, and just like a balloon, you breathe in, you go, hold it, and then you let out the breath. So you can make it fun, you can make it interesting, you can kind of be funny about it, go, or something funny like that. But that's a really fun and engaging way to get your kid to go ahead and stop, take a breath, and maybe do a few of those. Another form that breathing techniques can play is maybe if they're older, doing the 4-7-8 method. So there are a lot of different methods. Honestly, you could look up a totally different variety of how to breathe properly. But one of the ones that's pretty popular is the 4-7-8 method. And that's where you breathe in your nose for 4 seconds. So you hold it for 7 seconds, and then you release it. You exhale it through your mouth for 8 seconds, all the way until the 8. So that's a good method to it's really just drawing awareness back to the breathing instead of the stressor. So first we want to just get them breathing and get their focus away from the high stress point. So there's a lot of different breathing techniques you can do. Another one for kids of really any age, but usually primary, is to have what they call like a mini sphere rainbow ball. It's one of those squeegee balls that you hold in and then you breathe with it. So you breathe in and then you breathe in, make the ball expand, and then you breathe out. This is just another visual way for kids to look at it and say, okay, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. It's just another way to get awareness away from the stressor and to your own breathing. Okay, number 2 is validate the concern. So whatever it is that your child's feeling, whether you believe it to be legitimate or not, they need validation right now. So the first thing you say is, what's going on? Maybe that child is playing with their Legos. It broke. They can't get the Lego pieces to fit and they're freaking out. So you've already go ahead and you've already stopped them and had them breathe. Now you're going to say, okay, I see that you're upset because your Legos wouldn't fit. I'm sure that's really frustrating. How do you feel? By basically just saying that simple sentence, saying, I see that you're upset and that's okay, is really going to help them feel at ease. If you say something on the opposite end of, oh, well, buck up, Buttercup, it'll be fine, don't worry about it, all that's going to do is cause more stress. And really at that point, if we're all angry, isn't the first thing we want to hear is not going to be, just figure it out. You don't really need my help, right? So number 2 is validate the concern. Express to your child or your student, yes, I see that you're upset and it's okay to be upset. Okay, number 3 is ask them what happened. So go ahead and stop them and say, okay, what's going on? What's the situation? Tell me it. Big words here is break it down. So you can break it down in a lot of different ways. You can either have them write it out if that's helpful. You can have them tell you verbally what's going on. You can have them draw a picture. I mean, the options are endless, but ultimately we want to find out what are the triggers here. So we've already been breathing. We know the base concern, okay, in this example that the Legos wouldn't fit. So now we need to understand, okay, why is this a trigger? What's going on there? And so breaking it down allows you to say, okay, maybe it allows the child to walk through the issue and say, okay, I'm upset because this happened. And so then you can kind of decide, okay, well, this is the trigger. So in the future, I know that this is going to be an issue and we can kind of address it together, right? Number 4 is brainstorm solutions. So depending on the situation, there might not be a direct solution. So you might just want to be able to reframe the thinking. But brainstorming solutions could be a lot of different things. So maybe offer them some suggestions. Or before you offer them suggestions, maybe challenge their thinking and ask them, okay, well, this is what happened this time. What would happen if you did this? Or how could we do something differently next time to prevent this thing from happening? So kind of get their thinking, get their critical thinking working. And then if they're really struggling to come up with a solution, maybe offer them some simple suggestions. I would immediately already go ahead and just tell you, I would try not to tell them what to do right away because you really want to get them into that problem solving mode because right in the future, we don't want to have to tell them throughout their entire lives, okay, you need to take this step, this step, this step when you're stressed. Ultimately, we really want them to be independent and be able to solve problems for themselves. So to get that problem solving kind of skill working is really to challenge them, ask them questions. What do you think would work? Maybe what could you do in the future to help you, feel less stressed, okay? Okay, number 5 is make a game plan. So now you've already seen that there's a potential trigger. Hopefully at this point, you've already had them they've already been breathing, they've told you what's going on, and you have a better idea of what the trigger might be or what they're feeling, what they're anxious about. So at this point, create a game plan. So you can talk to the child, okay, in the future, what can we do differently so in the future this doesn't happen? So in the Legos, if your Legos are not fitting, what could we do in the future? If you're feeling stressed, how could you manage that stress? So that could be reminding them of their breathing technique. So teaching them how to do the balloon breath or maybe having some kind of sensory object. That's a great way to help your kids if they're real young. So I would say like 2 all the way through about 7 is having some kind of sensory activity. So that could be a squishy ball. That could be a bottle full of liquid just that they go back and forth. There's a lot of different options online that you can look at, but having some kind of sensory, again, just a way for them to refocus on what they need to be working toward, not the stressor, right? So let's get them back to the breath. Let's get them focusing on something else so they can calm their mind down enough to be able to problem solve. Or another way you could game plan is creating positive thinking. So maybe if they're anxious about something, giving them kind of a mantra to say. I'm in control of what I do. I can fix this. Now, mantras are probably going to be geared toward a little bit older because when you're young, it's really hard to remember all of that. So if you got older kids, maybe giving them some phrases and some things to tell themselves so they can calm themselves down. So those are my 5 steps to helping a stressed or anxious child. I hope this is helpful for you. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know. I know that this is not the only way to solve it. It's just that in my experience, I've seen that this process, a 5-step process, has been really helpful. It's helped me bond with my students. It's also helped really just break it down. And in the future, I've seen that there's a lot less triggers and a lot less stress that you have to deal with. And then at that point, you can really get them focused on what matters, on them learning and them playing and them socializing with others. So I hope this was helpful. Please stay tuned for all of my videos. I'll post a new video every Wednesday, so please keep an eye out for that. They're going to be each day. If you have a concern or if you have any suggestions or anything like that, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea for a video in the future and you'd really like to learn something new, let me know. I would be happy to do a video on it. So I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your week. Please make sure to like and subscribe this video if you love it. And please tell your friends about it because hopefully my method or some of the suggestions that I've had today maybe will help you or maybe it will help somebody else too. So have a great rest of your week and happy learning.